This isn't a showbiz story. There's only ever been one person considered for Sherlock Holmes in this part. We got Sue and I were watching Atonement, knowing we were looking for a Sherlock Holmes, and there was Benedict doing what he did in those days, playing the creepy villain, and we just thought, oh, he could be a Sherlock Holmes. We mentioned
also,
the Mark.
because I didn't know much at all about Sherlock Holmes, so you described to me the ideal, tall, thin, angular, big nose.
With an impressive nose, and sort of aristocratic. I mentioned that to Mark, who actually knew him, and he thought that was a good idea. We got Benedict in, taped him in Beryl's flat, and sent it to the BBC and said, look, there is really no point in carrying on. Yeah. That's it. That's the one.
Yeah, I was very aware that I wouldn't necessarily be the first person that people would think of as Moriarty. So I think there's the job at the end of the first series was to sort of serve the script. There was this fantastic build-up to him. So I think it was important that because I wouldn't be obvious casting, that you don't do an obvious copycat version of someone else's villain. So I think, I wanted it to be maybe audacious, and it was written very audaciously and quite theatrically. But looking back on it now, I do understand. I do see that people thought, what the fuck is this?
We thought it would be like an audience of 4 million and an obscure audience from a Polish, obscure award from a Polish festival or something like that. We thought it'd be that level. We didn't. And it happened so completely suddenly. We've barely finished the show, and it's this enormous hit, and there seemed to be no intervening moment of escalation. It just happened.
We actually went, the sort of sense of ownership, 50 years of Doctor Who, we actually had after 90 minutes. It just went right. But in the same sort of way, I think you can't make it for anyone other than yourself. You can't, just because people get cross with the notion that Sherlock might fall in a species of love doesn't mean you can't do it. And what you're talking about is that the wonderful thing is that people are engaging with the show in so many ways. They're creating their own versions, their own fictions. They're extrapolating wildly about what might happen.
Yes, they are.
Yes, they are.
For some reason, I hadn't seen it. I don't know why. So I watched it. I watched it grow. I watched the first episode, and I thought, God, this is fantastic. And there was this huge fanfare to it, and people sort of immediately, which I think is extraordinary about Sherlock, is that and very hard to do, is that people had an immediate affection for it. I think a show can be very popular and very, critically very well received, but I think to have an affection for a show so early on is really extraordinary.